run, do not walk to your computer or your phone and click add to cart and purchase or get on that wait list. When I met LA, I knew I wanted to work with her to develop my signature speech. And because I have a performance background, I knew that speaking would be the best way for me to naturally merge my worlds of college prep expertise and performance expertise. And I am loving what I'm learning so far. There are so many things that, even though I have stage experience, I wouldn't know would make a memorable speech that really gets to the core of what people want and need to hear in order to make a buying decision. I have already given, 3 talks since I started the class. I'm only halfway through and I have 2 or 3 more to go. And I am so indebted to LA for helping me feel confident and really just excited about what my talk is going to become in the next few weeks.
Is sales and selling one of those things that you would rather avoid than actually do or get good at? How many sales books are on your bookcase? How many sales courses have you taken? I'm going to help you today with my special guest. She is the sales maven, and I was on her podcast recently. And after having such a wonderful conversation, I was like, you have got to come over to my podcast and share your brilliance about sales. And we talk a lot about curiosity and buying signals. So if that sounds interesting, make sure you continue to listen. And if we've never met before, I'm Laurie-Ann Murabito. I am the host of this podcast, Be in Demand. And this is the podcast for coaches, consultants, and service providers, because we talk all about how to leverage speaking opportunities as your best form of marketing, because speaking positions you as the expert, attracts the ideal clients that you're looking for, and helps you monetize your message. Nikki, I have been looking forward to this interview for quite a bit now and can't believe the day has arrived.
I'm looking forward to this as well.
So, what books are on your nightstand?
Well, first of all, I am a Kindle reader, so I have my iPad. So every book I have on my Kindle is on my nightstand because that's where my iPad sits. As far as favorite books, oh my gosh, I'm reading a series right now that's called I think it's called the Dublin Trilogy.
Ooh.
And it's just I read it totally for pleasure. And the author makes me laugh out loud. Like the things that he writes, I think it's a he. Just the way that he writes his characters makes me laugh out loud. And I love a book that will spur laughter.
I love that. I'm going to have to make sure I write down the name of this later. What I love about really good books that's not so business related, I just love to see how people put words together.
Yes.
It makes me a better writer. And being a better writer, I tell people makes you a better speaker. You're able to articulate your thoughts. So I love that. And you had no idea that I was going to ask you that question. So that also means that you have a pretty neat nightstand. So good
Thanks.
for you. Good
Thank
for
you.
you.
Like it.
And
the older I get, the more my husband teases me about, because I've got some Advil and I've got some pain relief, stuff that you rub on your, because my hips get sore at night. I'm getting older.
That's okay. As long as there's stuff to help us ease into that part of our lives. Okay.
Right.
One other fun question so that the audience and I get to know you a little bit better. And that is, what is one habit of yours that you're like, I would not trade this for anything?
Oh, it might kind of relate back to the question that I just said here, is that one habit of mine is I do try to find some version of humor or something to find funny, even in the darkest moments. And that has been a habit I've had for many, many years, and it continues to serve me. Not that because I definitely have some dark times and dark moments, but I do look for where's the lightness, where's the humor in it? Can I laugh at myself, even when I want to cry?
Yes. And I think that's a really good skill to have, because if you haven't had any dark moments, you're going to have some dark moments. Yeah. It's just inevitable with life. So thank you for sharing that. And humor is definitely like something that I always gravitate towards. And I specifically remember the day that I said, I can either be the glass is half full or the glass is half empty. Which one do I want to be? I preferred the half full, and like it, the rest is history.
Hmm.
I just have to see the brighter side in everything.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about how you became the sales maven.
Well, I have a pretty extensive background in sales. So that was my career for many, many years. I sold technology. I was a traveling road warrior, like traveled so much that my airline used to send me a Christmas gift every year. So imagine how much you have to travel for an airline to actually send you a Christmas gift because that's how much money they make off of you. Um, and then during my sales career, I started studying neurolinguistic programming and became master certified in it. I have over 200 classroom hours. And if that's a new term to anybody listening, it's essentially the study of communication. So I started studying NLP because I thought it would make sales easier for me. And it definitely did. But what it really did is it made me a better communicator and it improved many relationships in my life as a result. And so I got to a point in my career where I was feeling a little bit like, is this it? Like, is there anything else out there for me? And I got really curious about that feeling because I was having so much success in my career. It was interesting to feel like it wasn't quite as fulfilling as I thought it would be once I reached a certain level. And I left my job, my corporate job, and started helping my NLP teacher build her business. She had just moved to the state that I was living in. And that's when I first started attending networking meetings with entrepreneurs, because again, I came from this very corporate background. I worked in a very male dominated industry. I was meeting with, huge law firms, huge corporate, firms and selling to them. I mean, I sold to NASA at some point in my career, like big companies. And um, I started meeting these entrepreneurs and realizing that these people are just incredible. They're super passionate. They want to make a difference in the world. And I just wanted to be around them and I wanted to be of some kind of support and help. And I found that a lot of them were struggling to make money. And the thing that they were really struggling with is they didn't understand how to sell. And that was something I knew how to do. So I just started kind of helping some of them on the side and just, anybody who wanted any kind of advice around sales, I just started offering it. And finally, somebody pulled me aside and said, like, Nikki, why aren't you doing this as a business? And I thought, I don't think people would pay me to teach them this. Like, it seems so easy. That seems dumb that somebody would pay me. But she convinced me that if I put a price tag on an offer that people would sign up for it. And Sales Maven was really born out of that, out of just wanting to be of service and hang around super cool entrepreneurs.
That's awesome. I really like that. That's a great story. All right, I got a couple of questions for you. The
Okay.
NLP. I want to go back to the NLP. And you
Okay.
stumbled upon this? Did you know of
Well,
NLP beforehand? Like, I'm just curious because this is starting to sound like how I got into coaching.
okay. Well, okay. So I have been somebody since for like pretty young age, I tend to seek out mentors. I love having a mentor, and I have been really blessed in my life to have these incredible mentors. One of my mentors, I was sitting in her office one day and I was lamenting about something, and she had made a comment to me about congruency. She was talking about congruency and she was talking about what I was actually saying versus my body language. And I was like, "What? What do you mean congruency? Like I don't understand." And so she had shared with me that she'd studied neurolinguistic programming and she kind of gave me like a little insight into it. So I got curious and I started reading books on body language and like, what does that mean? Like, how can I be incongruent? What I'm saying, what my body is, the message my body's sending. And then she called me out of the blue one day and said, "Hey, do you want to spend a week with me?" Which I already said yes. And then she said, "In the Redwood Forest." I said yes. And then she said, "Learning storytelling." And I was like, "Don't care. I'm in. Let's go." So we went and spent a week learning storytelling in the Redwood Forest. And that is when I met my NLP teacher. The person teaching storytelling, was master certified practitioner of NLP and had been teaching it for many, many years. So I signed up, and that's really like I went deep into it for 2 years. I got on a plane one weekend a month to go study with her and, take her courses and become master certified in it. And then eventually she moved to the state that I was living in and started to help grow her business and assisting and all of that. So
Good for you. It's so funny how things just all line up for you, and you just got to follow the breadcrumbs, is what I like to say.
that's so
And you
true.
and you did exactly that. Now, you said one of my favorite words is curiosity. I think of this as anticipation. And there's one thing that looking back on my childhood, I'll take you back to high school, the junior or senior prom. That anticipation of that particular party, that date, everything that leads up to it totally excites me. And so I kind of put that in the same category as curiosity, because I believe that there is something about making people curious.
Mhm.
And I've done podcast episodes and even trainings at networking events when people do their elevator pitch. And the ones where you're rolling your eyes and you're just like, oh, please, would my phone just go off? Because the person is like giving you the history of themselves instead of making you curious to ask them questions. And please, yeah, tell me more.
And I think I love the word anticipation. And I know you had a guest on recently that talked, or maybe it's been a few months now, but talked about anticipation. And I
Mhm.
loved that episode, by the way.
Brenna
And
McGowan.
yes,
Yes.
yes, she was fantastic. So the idea of creating curiosity it actually it can be a game changer. Like being able to show up and be curious is one thing in sales. But being able to show up and create curiosity is really how you open the door for that next part of the conversation. This is where you take it further. And it's the idea that if you don't know how to create curiosity when you're talking about your business, the products, the services that you offer, who you are, oftentimes you'll have very high level conversations. You'll talk about the weather, you'll talk about the event that you're at, but it'll never go any further. And if we don't know how to create curiosity, we can't deepen connection and relationship and then find out if this person I'm talking to has a need for what I do or say or offer.
Mhm.
So I teach creating curiosity. It's a big part of what I teach. And I teach it as it's the difference between how you call a dog and how you call a cat. And I know this sounds a little out there. So stick with me for just a minute as I explain this. So when you think about when you want to get a dog's attention, right? You kind of change your demeanor. You change the way you talk, your voice changes, you do these like high pitch like come here boy, come here, right? And dogs love that energy. They're like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm already in," right? They don't know if it's a treat, a walk, a car ride. They don't even care. They're just in because you've shown up with this like high energy. But unfortunately, when we're showing up at events, when we're speaking, when we're meeting people for the first time, if we show up with what I call dog calling energy, we come on too strong and people push away because they go, "Ooh, too much." Right. And we've all been at those events where somebody's like comes over and they're like, "Oh my gosh, Laurie-Ann, I looked at your website and, I do SEO and I was just noticing that you need so much help. All these things that you're doing. Oh my gosh, you should hire me immediately." And you're like, "Oh, push away." Right. Like, too much comes on too strong. So
I completely agree with all of this so far.
okay, good.
I've had way too many of those experiences.
Right. And some of them just show up in our email randomly, right? Like people are like,
Yes.
"I went to your YouTube channel and here's all the things you've done wrong." And you're like, "Well, first of all, I don't know you. Why would I trust you? And I don't appreciate you telling me all the things I did wrong. That's not you think you're doing me a service, but actually you're being offensive, right? Like, so this dog calling energy, and it's not that people are trying to be wrong. It's not that they're trying to be offensive. They just don't know how to do it the other way. So this is where you go back to cat calling energy. If you want to get a cat's attention, you definitely can't call a cat like you call a dog, because cats would
No.
just like run away. They run the other way. Instead, you have to change your demeanor a little bit. You do this little like, here, kitty, kitty, here, kitty, kitty. And cats don't even always come to that. Sometimes they just look at you like, what? Right? And that's okay. All we're trying to do when we're creating curiosity is capture somebody's attention enough for them to want to ask a follow-up question. So this is learning how to create what I call here, kitty, kitty statements. That's one way to create curiosity. Here, kitty, kitty statements that make somebody pause and go, Laurie-Ann, what is that? What does that mean? Or, oh my gosh, what did you talk about on your podcast? What does anticipation mean to you? Or like if they can start asking questions, now we're in a real conversation with somebody. You're not dog calling, you're not word vomiting on them and telling them all the things why they need to hire you. You're actually having a back and forth conversation. And frankly, that's how business is done. You don't just show up and somebody goes, here's my credit card. Like, I'll go ahead and sign up for your program. I don't know who you are. That's not how it works. So we've got to create curiosity. And once we create curiosity, then what happens is people start to give buying signals if they're interested. And then your job is to act on it. Now we can go wherever you want. So I'm just going to pause and see where you go.
Okay. I want to go into the buying signals, but I want to stick with the curiosity.
Okay.
Because I feel like my audience, we're all about speaking, whether that's on stages, it's virtual, on your social media, some sort of a live stream. Like, how do you help people, or how would you guide the audience to like creating those kitty cat calling statements?
Well, here's one way on social media that I think is a missed opportunity all the time is we will go and post something about like some event that we've got coming up or some accomplishment that we just did. Now, that's essentially like telling somebody, right? Like we're talking at people when we do that. What one way to create curiosity online is to ask somebody a question first. Now, a lot of times people say, well, I do ask a question, but they bury it at the bottom. People have to read all the way to get to that question. No, the question comes first. So let's say that you're really excited about some speaking opportunity you just booked. How about ask the question, what is the most exciting thing that's happened to you this week? Put some space, then you give your answer. Because by asking their brain a question, they'll start thinking about their answer and they'll be that now curious to hear your answer. But just saying like, hey, I booked this speaking gig. I'm so excited about it. Look at me, look at me, look at me. Everybody's doing that.
Yes.
But can you pique somebody's curiosity? And sometimes it's by asking their brain a question. And even though they may not answer it, they may not actually answer on your, on your thread or whatever, but they're likely answering in their head. And then they want to see what your answer is. So that's just one way to do it on social media, for instance.
Okay, I love that. So how about from the stage?
Well, from the stage, one of the ways to create curiosity is to prep people at the beginning that there's going to be an opportunity for them to get more. And I know, because I've had you on my podcast, you're brilliant at this, right? Like you have this thing, I think I'm trying to steal your thunder here. I'm suspecting your audience knows that you do this, but you're like, I've got over 25 years. I can't fit it all in, right?
Yes.
Right? Like this, where I'm going with this?
Yes.
So if you pre-frame at the start of your talk, you say, now, what we're going to talk about today is X, Y, and Z. Now, many of you are going to want more. This is just the tip of the iceberg, but I'm going to give you something that you can immediately implement and leave with today. And for those that are ready to take that next step, I'm going to tell you how to get it. We'll do that before Q&A at the end. Fantastic. Now they're anticipating like, oh, I'm listening. I'm listening to what Laurie-Ann's saying. And I'm also thinking like, yeah, this is awesome. What else is there? What else does she got? What else can I get? right? So
Right.
you got to prep them a little bit. We want to pique that curiosity and have them go like, oh, that's just one way. There's planting seeds throughout your talks, right? Of like, actually, one of the ways I love to do this is the way you answer a question, right? Because if you're at a talk and there's an opportunity for audience to ask questions, you might get a question that is like, oh man, this is so in my wheelhouse. This is the stuff that I do with clients. Instead of just answering the question, you can plant the seed. You can create curiosity and you can say, that is probably my favorite question because I work with clients so much on this one thing. Now there's a lot that goes into it. So I'm going to give you the first step
Oh, I
to get you
love
started.
that. Talk
Now,
about curiosity.
right? If you say the first step, what's implied there? There's
There's
more
more steps.
steps. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like one of the things that I tell clients and students inside my in-demand signature speech, like if you have I'll say a 4-step framework, and in in-demand signature speech, like I talk about, like you're only going to go over 3 points, so you do like point 1, point 2, and maybe point 4, and the audience is like, what happened to 3?
So
Oh,
smart.
and a lot of times somebody will say something like, "What happened to step 3? You didn't go over step 3." Oh, uh, yeah, I only have like so much time, and yeah, there's lovely phrasing for that, but it comes down to like, yeah, that curiosity. What's that phrase? Curiosity killed the cat. Satisfaction brought it back. And it's just how the human brain works. I want
Mhm.
to put all the pieces together,
Yes.
and I need to know what's missing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Our brains love to be able to make sense of something. This is why
Mhm.
storytelling is so powerful, right? This like we want a beginning, a middle, we want an end, and we want to know like what's going on. So yeah, you got to pique that curiosity and have somebody going like, what does that mean? Or how do I get step 3?
Are you ready to leverage speaking as your best form of marketing? There are over 7,500 events looking for speakers every single day. Speaking positions you as the expert in the room, but you probably don't know where to start. So I created this great resource called the Directory of Places to Speak. This resource will help you get started today. So head on over to speakandstandout.com/directory to grab your free copy now. Don't miss this opportunity to be the expert speaking to audiences filled with your ideal clients.
Okay, I can tell you how to get step 3.
Is there a way that you put curiosity and storytelling together?
Yes, for sure. So you can plant seeds through story where you can say, now, I'm not going to tell you all the things in the story. I'm going to tell you 3 of the main things. There's so much more. Like you could do it like that, right? Where that starts to plant the seed. The other thing is you can create curiosity when you talk about a struggle that's specific that somebody was having, and then the solution that you were able to help them with. That, because the thing about story is our brains associate. This is just like how our brains work. So when you hear a story about someone else, you're not really thinking about the someone else. You're thinking, how does that story relate to me?
Mm-hmm.
Where am I? Who am
Mm-hmm.
I in the story? Where am I in the story? Who am I in the story? How would that story impact me if that was my situation? What would I have done? What would I have said? Or what would happen in my business?
Yeah.
Right. So, for instance, a story I love to share that often gets people like going like, wait, what? How does that work? How can I do that? Is I have a client that when she first hired me, one of the things that she was telling me is that she was doing consultation calls and they were taking anywhere from 1 to 2 hours. And
Oh
I was
my
like,
goodness.
wait, what? Like, that's a no right off the bat. I want my clients to learn how to do a consultation call in 30 minutes or less. And I want them to close 75% or more of those consult calls. So that's one of the things that we work on. And when she came to me, she's like, Nikki, there's no way that I can close on a consult call in less than an hour. And so we worked together. The very first time we worked together, within 1 hour of us being done, she reached out and she's like, Nikki, I just closed in 15 minutes. This client, it had never happened to me before, right? So she went from being a 2 hour consultation to in 15 minutes clients, like somebody actually paying her money. She had never actually even taken money on the first call before. So she
Wow.
was like, "Oh no, we have to have multiple conversations." And I was like, "Oh no, you don't. Well, let's see. Let's work this through." And so now when people go, "Oh, wait, I'm doing hour-long consult calls. I can do them in 30 minutes or less. I can take money." And this is actually when I get a ton of pushback. People are often like, yeah, but they do something that what I do. There's no way I can take money. I can say 99% of my clients can take money on that first call. It's just learning how to do it effectively.
Mm.
Now, if you're sitting there and you hear yourself in this story about my client and where she went. And actually, I just had a conversation with her the other day. When she hired me, she wanted to get close to 20,000 a month. That was what the goal was. I was like, yeah, of course you do. And she's like, and I still use everything that we worked on about closing.
Oh, that is
So
that just warms my heart.
I know, me too. I am so delighted. I'm so delighted for her. I'm very proud of her. Now, she did what I always say, implementers get results. She implements and she continues to implement over and over and over again. And she's refined it. She's figured out how to make it just her own. So tell a story, let somebody see themselves in the story, and then they're going, I want to do that.
I
And
feel,
you can.
and stories is like candy
Hmm.
for your audience because they put themselves in the story. They see it, they feel it. As long as you're a good storyteller,
Yes.
and you should be perfecting your stories. So this leads really into the next thing that I'm dying to talk about, and that is the buying signals. And I'm going to be totally truthful that there have been a couple of my sales calls that I've had recently where I had no idea this person was interested. And like I actually had to come out like, do you want to literally do you want to work with me? And they were like, yeah, actually I do. Can you tell me what that's like? And my husband's in sales. So I was telling him the story and he was like, did you not see the buying signals? And I'm like, I was like, it was a call for me to be on their podcast. And so like, I wasn't in that frame of mind. Anyways, so I felt like I stumbled through my sales process. But talk to us about buying signals because they do show up in all different shapes and sizes. And in my case, sometimes they surprise me.
Yes, buying signals are everywhere. And honestly, that was kind of one of the biggest kind of game changers when I started talking about buying signals. That was really when my business started like taking off because people were like, "What? There are buying signals out there?" Buying signals. So, first and foremost, for anybody listening, buying signals are verbal and nonverbal cues that people give that indicate interest. Your job is to check it out. Your job is to act on the buying signal in the moment. And I always refer back to one time I was at my dentist office and I went into their restroom and they had this big poster on the door that said, "You don't have to brush all your teeth, only the ones you want to keep." And here's how I relate it to buying signals. You don't have to act on every buying signal, only the ones that you want to earn the business. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you don't want to work with someone and they're giving you buying signals, by all means, ignore them. But if you want to earn business, you have to know how to recognize a buying signal and you have to be willing to check it out. Now, you might check it out and the person might say, "Oh, no, 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 I was just asking a question." Okay, fine. You just move on with the conversation. Like I've been in sales now for more than 25 years, and I've issued a lot of invitations for people to work with me. I've checked into a lot of buying signals, and I've been told no once. Okay, many more times than once, but I've never had anybody like clutch their pearls and be like, how dare you ask me for my business, right? Like it just doesn't happen, but I think we think it's going to happen. So it doesn't. Like get through that and push through and just be willing to check them out. So an example of a buying signal, which maybe I'm sure you can share from what you're talking with somebody and they're indicating, usually it will come in the form of a question. Someone will say something like, what are the ways that you work with clients? And that if that question feels a little bit like, where did that question come from? Like we were talking about being on their podcast. And maybe they're just asking for the podcast, like, the kind of the pre-interview call or whatever. And if you answer the question, you can check out and you can follow up and say, is that something you would ever be interested in? Right? Like you could say, here's how I work with clients, answer the question, and then follow up with an invitation. Is that something you'd be interested in? And even if you're like, oh, maybe that's too direct, you could say, what spurred that question?
I like both of those
So just make it
questions.
simple,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we've got to check because oftentimes, if you don't act on the buying signal, people won't just say, Laurie-Ann, take my money. Please, I want to hire you. How do I do this? Like they don't even know how to like articulate it yet in their brain. They don't know what you know. They don't know the ways to work with you. And so your job is to just make it easy for them. And the way you make it easy for their brain to make decisions is you ask them a question. So you could say, is that something you'd like to talk more about? Or is that something you'd like to get signed up for? Or what spurred that question? Right? Like just ask a question and see what happens. Because oftentimes they'll go, oh, well, actually, I really could use some help on crafting my talk, right? Or I want to get better at speaking, whatever that is. And then you can say, is that something, do you have a few minutes now? Should we chat a little bit about ways that maybe I could support you or be a resource to you?
All right, I'm noticing a theme here with you.
Yeah.
Questions.
Amen.
Questions in the social media, asking better questions, questioning a question. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And tapping into your NLP, tell me more about how questions light up our brains, because I think that's super interesting.
Yeah, well, our brains are wired to answer questions, right? And actually there's a term, I cannot think of what it's called. Our brains are wired for questions. Our brains are like Google. If you go type anything into Google right now, uh, Google tries to give you answers, right? It tries to
Hmm.
say, here's pages of things on what I think you're asking me. And Google doesn't always get it right. Our brains are the same. When you ask somebody a question, even if they're not in the same room with you, so you're posting on a social media, or even if they're in a live conversation with you, they have to intentionally try not to answer it. They have to like try to pay attention to something else because otherwise their brain provides them with an answer. That's
Hmm.
that's just how
Whether
our
it's
brains are
right or
wired.
wrong. I mean,
Right.
this is where all our limiting beliefs come in. Your spouse, is busy doing something. They've got their head down. You come in all excited from your day and it's like, hi. And it's like, oh, why aren't they excited to see me? And we come up with like all of these different reasons why they might not be excited to see us. Or we just make these interpretations
Mhm.
and that's just our brain doing what it's trying to do, which is anticipate and answer the question. So I'm going to go back to the buying signals. And as the speaker, when you are speaking, because this is all about, what we've been discussing is that it's about questions. This is your theme.
Mhm.
So as the speaker, let's just set the scene. You are at an in-person event, you are speaking on stage. How can you sense buying signals from the audience?
Well, a lot of times it will come in there, like from their questions.
Mm.
Also, people will do things, right? Like There, in NLP, we call this beamers, behavioral emotional response system. So people will beam at you in an audience, and you probably know this as a speaker. The person who's just like so leaning forward, they're so making eye contact with you, and they're just in, right? Like they're smiling, they're nodding. Like these are beamers, right? And we love those as speakers. We love beamers in the audience because we're like, oh, this person is so on board with what I'm saying. Well, pay attention to your beamers because those people are indicating like they're really
Mhm.
in what it is that you're saying. So here's the game changer is when you come off stage. Don't run away, don't leave the room, stick around and be willing to be open to people coming up because they're going to want to tell you story, they're going to have questions for you. But one of the things that I think speakers often freak out about is sometimes they'll have a line of people wanting to talk to them, right? Like, which is great. You did a great job on stage. And now you have all these people wanting your attention. Don't rush through each person to try to get, to get through because the people who really want to talk to you, they'll stick around. And your job is to invite people to the next step before you leave the room. So that means pulling out your calendar and booking times for you guys to talk, or that means taking their credit card and letting them sign up for your program if they want to. And I don't care if you have 10 people in line, go ahead and say, if somebody comes over to you and they're like, Laurie-Ann, I need help. I know I need you in my life. And you go, great. Tell me a little bit about what would be interesting to you. You know, I have this program going on right now. Is that something you'd like to get signed up for? If they say yes, you go, great. Do you have your phone available? Let's get you signed up. Like get them signed up in the room. Because as soon as they leave the room, they're bombarded with a lot of other things vying for their attention. And it doesn't mean that they don't want to work with you or that they won't hire you, but they're less likely to as soon as they are out of your presence. So be willing to either book a consult call or sell the thing to them, right? Like one of the reasons I got asked to speak at one of the largest like conferences that I spoke to with when I say largest, I'm going to say with the most of my ideal clients sitting in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Was the person who put on the event. I was there as an attendee. And she said that she walked by me a couple times and she saw me taking people's credit cards at her event. And so the next year, she's like, I want you on stage. I want you to tell people how you did this, Nikki. Now, her and I have become really good friends over the years. She was my coach for a while. Like, I just love this woman to death. But it really kind of came because she was like, who takes credit cards at my event? Who's making sales at my event? And now she loved that, right? She loved that I was doing that. So she's like, let's put you on the stage and let's like share with people how you did this.
Yes.
And it was a game changer for my business that year of being on the stage because yes, I booked people at her first year of event, but the second and then the third year she asked me back again. Like I booked so many clients at the event and I come off stage, somebody's ready to talk to me, I'm ready to talk to them, somebody's ready to sign up and work with me, I'm ready to take their credit card.
And people getting in line and forming a little crowd around you, that builds curiosity also. I mean, the people that are in the back of the room who might have thought about coming up to speak to you, but then they change their mind, but then they look over and it's like that builds curiosity out. Why is there a crowd in the front of the room? Like now I have to go and check this out. That's why I tell my clients who have books, you put your table by the front of the room because it's a lot of work to get to the back of the room. Whereas if you just stay in the front of the room, if time allows, as long as there's, like a break between you and the next speaker, I just say just stay up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to move very far. And also, when people see that people are pulling their credit cards out or that people are buying things from you right then, they're like, well, what can I buy?
Yes.
So you're right. It piques that curiosity for people.
Lots of curiosity going on. Is other people buying? Can that also spur a buying signal in somebody else?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely. It's the idea of I don't want to miss out, right? Like FOMO is a real thing, right? We don't want to miss out on things that other people are doing. So maybe we're not ready to buy, but then we see other people buying and we go, Maybe I should think about this again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very nice. Nikki, this has been such an entertaining conversation, a ton of fun, and we really dove into I feel like this was more of a masterclass on building curiosity and then the buying signals for everybody. And I'm sure that there's so much more that people can learn from you. So would you please share with everybody where they can find you, where they can learn more, where they can listen to your podcast? Share all the goodness, please.
Well, thank you for that. I'm going to wrap it around a gift for your audience. I always like to give a gift if I get to come and actually speak to an audience. So I have an ebook. It's called Closing the Sale. It talks about kind of those three last steps we didn't really go into this, but I have a signature framework for a sales conversation. It's made up of 5 steps. So it talks about the 3 last steps. So closing the sale, it's all about boosting your confidence and getting you to that close. And you can get that by going to yoursalesmaven.com/demand. So this is for your audience. You can grab that and then we'll be connected. And my podcast is Sales Maven. So you can find it on your favorite podcast app. And I share lots of trainings, techniques. I do on-air coaching calls and then I have guest experts like you on my podcast too. So come check us out.
Thank you very much. And all of those links are going to be down below. So if you are at the gym, exercising right now, driving in the car, or doing some errands right around the house, cooking dinner, taking care of the kids, just take one moment and either text this episode to yourself or send an email to yourself reminding you about the goodies that Nikki just shared with us so that you remember to get that ebook and definitely go and follow her podcast because it is full of wonderful goodness. Nikki, thank you so much for coming on my show and sharing all of your brilliance with my people. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for having me.
And till next time, everybody, go and be in demand. Hey there. Are you ready to take the stage and your business to the next level? Because the doors to my in-demand signature speech program are officially open. Join now and you will get instant access to the program so you can start crafting your 3 C's presentation, a talk that is captivating, compelling, and most importantly, converting. Imagine an audience that's raving about you, remembering you, and referring you long after you step off the stage. That is the power of a signature speech. And this program will help you create one that you are proud to deliver. If you want a sneak peek at what's inside the program, check out the show notes for a past episode where I pulled back the curtain and gave you a behind-the-scenes look. Your audience is waiting. Let's make your story the one that they will never forget. I'll see you inside.